What's the difference between ADHD and autism? That's what I'm going to talk about in this video, along with tips that can help you if you've been diagnosed with ADHD or autism, or suspect you might have one of these. So is it autism or ADHD? Let's talk about some key differences, not only in how ADHD and autism look, but also some traits that appear similar but have very different underlying causes. The basics of ADHD and autism. Both autism and ADHD are listed as neurodevelopmental disorders in the 5th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, also known as the DSM-5. They are listed as two distinct entities, and before 2013, it was thought that one person couldn't have both. Now we know that isn't the case, and a wide number of people are diagnosed with both, myself included. So what are the key differences between these two? Let's start with predictability versus impulsivity. A huge difference between autism and ADHD is what the brain craves. For autistic brains, they thrive on predictability and organization. This is why routines are extremely important for autistic people, and changes in routines absolutely suck. It can really ruin an entire day or week. So an autistic person usually likes order and organization in many things. Everything goes in a particular place. There is a structure to the day that can be followed and is planned and predictable. Physical spaces are often organized because then things are easier to find, and this makes an autistic brain happy and satisfied and non-explosive. If clutter builds, it can make an autistic person feel upset or overwhelmed. So it's important to keep things organized, predictable, and the same as often as possible. Then when changes come up, like a brand of something is out of stock, it might be easier to handle if everything else has stayed the same. This is why a lot of autistic people might like to wear the same clothes, watch the same shows, or listen to the same songs. It's really common for autistics to eat the same food, which is also connected to other eating habits that I talk about in another video. The routines and repetitive behaviors are a key trademark of autism, and having these can be very calming to an autistic brain, which otherwise might often be overwhelmed by the world. ADHD brains, however, crave excitement and are impulsive. Little bits of spontaneity can send little rushes of dopamine to an ADHD brain. So ADHDers often are spontaneous and crave novelty. This means planning might seem boring to someone with ADHD. And I mean, let's be honest. Why plan something when you can just go out and do it? An ADHDer's space might look a little bit messy or cluttered, or completely and utterly chaotic. And they might have a hard time organizing and sticking to a routine. This doesn't mean routines aren't important for them. It just means they might have a hard time doing it and keeping up with that routine. The world can also be overwhelming for an ADHD brain, but in a different way than autistic brains. Sometimes the ADHD brain is so busy and active that it has a hard time prioritizing what to do and how to do it. An ADHD brain is always busy. And so is an autistic brain. But the way that looks is different because of the cravings of the two brains. Order and predictability for an autistic brain, and impulsivity and novelty for an ADHD brain. Differences in focus. Focus can be challenging for both autism and ADHD. So while it may appear that both lack focus, the way both types of brain focus is actually very different. An autistic brain can hyperfocus on one particular thing, but might struggle to tune things out in general. There are often tons of sensory stimuli happening for an autistic brain, and processing it all at once is way too much. But once an autistic brain gets focused on something, it can have tunnel vision and struggle to transition from one thing to another. So while focused on one thing, everything else around them could completely disappear. You could call their name, tap their shoulder, or even fart the entire alphabet, which I might have done once or twice in college. And it is entirely possible that they will have no idea anything happened when they're hyper-focused on something. How cool is that? It's also sometimes hard for autistics to leave things unfinished. The completion of something is immensely satisfying to an autistic brain. This can lead to the description of autistics as inflexible, and might even lead to a meltdown if an autistic person wants to finish something but gets interrupted before they can. Providing clear instructions and also visual reminders can help a lot, but each autistic person might have different preferences. Someone with ADHD can also struggle to focus, but it's because they are easily distracted by the world around them. I mean, it's even in the name. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Focus and concentration is really hard for an ADHD brain. So someone with ADHD might need lots of breaks while doing things. During a meeting, they might get up often and walk around, or go to the bathroom. Sometimes they might not come back. They just get easily distracted from the task at hand, so it's hard to see anything to completion. An ADHDer might need lots of reminders of what they are doing and chances to refocus. For ADHD, there are different types: inattentive, hyperactive, impulsive. But all types have a hard time focusing because the brain is so busy and all over the place. With time and help, this is often corralled as people get older and practice focusing, but anything that requires sustained attention will likely be challenging. This leads to a person with ADHD looking like they are unfocused during conversations, while working, at school, and just in general most of the time. It's also likely that there are lots of unfinished tasks and projects around them. Laundry that sits in the washer for days before they remember to switch it to the dryer or hang it up. Half-finished projects around the house or at work. And my particular favorite, a bunch of half-drunk glasses placed in random spots all over your house, including the bathroom. ADHDers might bounce around topics during conversations, also because their brains are thinking of other things. And due to their impulsivity, they might lose things a lot because they lose focus on where they put things. This can be a little bit stressful when you misplace your keys or your phone or your glasses, which means you can't see very well, which makes it really hard to find your glasses, which can be pretty stressful. And too much stress can lead to diarrhea. A lot of these symptoms can appear differently, but reminders and setting up structures that help, like notifications on phones or devices, those can help a lot. Communication challenges. Social situations are challenging for both autistics and ADHDers, but for very different reasons. Social differences are well documented as one of the criteria for diagnosis of autism. Autistic people have a hard time understanding and adhering to non-autistic social norms, but ADHD people have a hard time sticking to them due to impulsivity and inability to focus. This can look very different. Autistic individuals might not attempt to interact as often as other people around them. Being patient and allowing for different social norms when interacting with an autistic can help to build trust and potentially lead to improvement in communication. So, not forcing eye contact by saying things like, "Hey, are you listening?" if the person is not making eye contact, can help with showing that you're understanding of this. ADHD individuals might understand the social norms, like not interrupting, but due to different neurology, they have a really hard time not blurting things out. Or they have a hard time staying focused on the conversation in the first place, especially when the conversation is really boring. Changing the topic of conversation and moving around during conversations are also very common for ADHDers. So for someone with ADHD, it can be helpful to keep conversations short and to the point. In a meeting, having a list of key takeaways or a short recap at the end can really be helpful. Autistic individuals also may struggle with understanding nonverbal communication due to not understanding the cues. And they also may have noticeable differences with nonverbal cues like facial expressions and making eye contact, which can make many autistic people uncomfortable. People with ADHD might be able to make eye contact and also display common nonverbal cues, but they might miss some of those cues during conversations due to being distracted and not paying attention to them. Something that is really interesting to note is that recent studies have shown that many autistic people may not struggle with all communication and actually can communicate quite effectively with other autistic people. One study from Edinburgh showed that a group of autistics communicating together could do so at about the same rates of effectiveness as a group of non-autistic people who are communicating with other non-autistic people. Where issues arose was when the autistic people were communicating with non-autistic people. That's when communication broke down. It's a fascinating concept. Maybe autistic social issues are a result of not understanding non-autistic communication, but it also goes both ways with non-autistics attempting to communicate with autistic people. So I'll drop a link to that study in the description below. So while people with ADHD or autism might both struggle with communication, the reasons for it and how it looks can still differ. For both groups, it is so helpful to be patient and understanding, and also to get to know the other person, to figure out what works with communication. Both autistics and ADHDers appreciate concise communication. It's less to focus on and helps them get what's most important from the interaction, which will be better for you both. Autism and ADHD are each unique, so even though there can be overlap in symptoms, it's important to understand the differences in neurology. I'll have another video on similarities with ADHD and autism that I'll link below. But in the meantime, what other questions or comments do you have related to ADHD and autism? Drop them in the comments, and thanks for watching. Or suspect you might have one of these. Or you just want to try your best to achieve. Can you do?